Bernard-Henri Lévy is here. He is a philosopher and a journalist and an activist and a filmmaker. A few years ago, he began a written correspondence with fellow French intellectual novelist Michel Houellebecq. Their 6 months of letters are collected in this book, Public Enemies, Dueling Writers Take on Each Other and the World. The book became a bestseller in France and in Europe. I'm pleased to have BHL back at this table. Welcome. Pleasure to have you back, my friend. All right,
I'm pleased to be back.
Public Enemies means what?
It means that we were enemies when the book began. We were on different positions. He is a Christian, I'm a Jew. He's a Republican, I'm a liberal. He's a conservative, I'm a Democrat. And we decided to discuss in a fair way, in a loyal way, without hatred, without poison, in a civilized way. This is the principle of the book, how two enemies can exchange words, can quarrel, debate, without making war to each other's.
It begins with a phone call or an email or a...
It began in a very funny way, yes. I was at home a Sunday afternoon and I received a text of Michel Houellebecq, with whom I hardly knew. And in this text, he tells me more or less that he is at the edge of finishing with life.
No reason to live.
I text him back and I tell him, maybe you suicide, but let's have dinner first. We have dinner. And I said, I asked him what happens. He tells me I'm despaired because this, his wife, he had maybe a problem, somebody else, his dog who was not so well too. And last but not least, he told me there is nobody left to debate with in this country. So my reply was, your wife, I cannot do anything. Your mistress, even less. Your dog, unfortunately, no. But debate, maybe I can do. And this way began this book. We decided this very night, not for a publication, just for fun, for the interest of the thing, to exchange letters. It is an old-fashioned way to debate. Nobody exchanges letters nowadays, as you know. People speak, people shout, people go on TV, people scream at each other, even congressmen and congresswomen, and sometimes with tragic consequences. But exchanging letters, taking time to develop an argument, to prove your cause in a loyal way, this is seldom done today, and this is what we decided to do.
Characterize him for me, though. Who he was. Who did you find?
I knew him by cliché, as we all know each other.
And he
sometimes.
knew you by cliché.
And he knew me by cliché. And the beginning of the book is one cliché in front of the others, and in the process of the book, the cliché breaks, and the image becomes more complex, which means more precise. Your image becomes precise, becomes accurate when it is complex, when the cliché breaks. So the cliché of Houellebecq was the naughty boy of the French letters. He is probably one of our, if not our best writer in France. The cliché was he had a big trial with some Muslim organizations because he said once he had drunk maybe too much, and he said a very bad thing about very politically incorrect word about Islam. And he was sued and had a very big trial. This belonged to his cliché. Also, he has the image of being very conservative, and so on. And we tried to break each other's cliché.
He did not believe in action.
I believe in commitment. He does not believe in commitment. I believe that if you have a little fame, you have the duty to give it back to the others and to transform it into deeds and into acts for the others. He believes the contrary. He's an egotist. He believes that when I go to Darfur or when I go to South Sudan, it's worth nothing, or that maybe I do it for bad reasons. I believe that I have to do it. So this is one of our divorce, yes, the question of commitment. I believe in public intellectuals. I believe that to be a public intellectual, as you say in English, is something. He believes in pure literature.
He quotes the famous maxim that better an injustice than disorder, which you violently disagree with.
Of course, of course. For me, one injustice is a scandal. Today, for example, you have some people who say, why do you care about one single Iranian woman, Sakineh, who is condemned to stoning, to death stoning? It is just one woman. It is just one injustice. Why would you care? For me, this woman is in a way, the center of the world.
And what impact do you believe you have as you go to these different places to make the case in the public?
It depends. It depends. I know, for example, that for Sakineh, not me, but in America, Ariana Huffington, in Canada, either Reisman, and my group in France, if we had not rang the bell, if we had not tried to alert the public opinion, she would be dead since last July. She would be dead with the face turned into a pulp. Of course she would be dead.
Do you believe she'll be stoned?
I believe now that she will not. I pray while I say it, and I hope I'm not saying the wrong thing, but I think she will not be stoned, no. Because of this public opinion movement, because you have some women and some men all around the world who believe that an injustice is much worse than a disorder, to take this part of the book where we quarrel a lot. Houellebecq thinks that disorder is worse. I think that injustice is the worst. It is two conceptions of the world.
So this series of exchange of letters begins with the fact that he talks about your public image and his public image and all of that. And then you come back to the point of saying that perhaps this conversation should focus on why there's so much hatred, that ought to be the subject of our dialogue, not how we're perceived, because how we're perceived matters little in the end.
Yeah. Yes, look at America today. This atmosphere of hatred, this poison which you feel in the public debate. On one side, and you saw what happened in Arizona, the Arizona killings. So, of course, you have hatred is something which you breathe like the air, and the role of intellectuals, of writers, should be to cool down this quantity of hatred. This is what I think. This is a reason, one of the reasons why we made this book, to show how you can be of very different opinions. You can disagree on everything, and nevertheless, to remain sweet, to remain civilized, and to move your own position. I moved on some points.
What did you move on?
I moved, for example, we have a strong discussion about Russia, right. Moscow and Russia.
He had said, in fact, that he likes this sort of post-Soviet Russia.
Exactly. And I begin to tell him that for me, this post-Soviet Russia is something terrible, that the Putinism is another way of despotism. For me, when we begin this discussion, Russia is the country where you have some free journalists shot dead in the entrance of their house, and so on. And he tends to convince me that Russia might be in the process of joining the concert of civilized nations. He convinces me in part, not completely, because I continue to believe that Putin is a dictator and that Putin is far from being a Democrat, of course. I convinced him probably about Jewishness, what it means to
speak about that. Yes,
what it means to be a Jew, what is the real metaphysical meaning of being a Jew.
What does it mean for you?
What it means for me, what I try to explain to Houellebecq, is that to be a Jew means that you have the responsibility of the world. You have an old school of rabbis in Eastern Europe who say the following: God created the world. Then he withdrew from the world and he left it to mankind. And the men and women have the duty with words, deeds and words, prayers and letters, to build some columns of letters who are like the architecture of the world, which prevent the world from decaying, from falling apart. This is what the part of the Jewish modern thought teaches to you, that words are the very thing which keeps the world together. Without words, without the letter, without the deeds and the prayer, the world should fall into dust again, should be decreated. What Jewishness teaches us, that there is a creation of the world, and there could be the decreation of the world, and that only man and prayer and study of the man can prevent creation to turn into decreation. On this point, I think that I convince him a little, that I tend to, he's not here to reply, but it's my feeling at the end of the book.
Now, why does he live in Ireland and not in Paris?
Because he's a misanthrope. He's a misanthrope.
Yeah, misanthrope.
Misanthrope, because he went probably to the place in the world where he's sure to have the least people to speak with and to speak in French.
So at the end of this 23 letters, do you think you gave him or helped him understand a reason to live? Did you restore some passion in him because of the nature of the exchange, that there was purpose for his intellect?
It would be very pretentious of me to say that, and very arrogant. But what I can say, and what one can perceive in the course of the book, yes, is that the book begins in a very despaired and pessimistic tone, and it finishes in another way. For example, Houellebecq is convinced that not only that he has the pack against him, that he has the pack, the mob running after him and trying to prevent him from writing. He believes that, but he even believes that society is made for that. The conviction of Houellebecq is that question, what is a society? Reply, society is this which prevents artists to exist and to perform. I'm not completely in agreement with that, and maybe I convince him a little on that the situation is not so desperate. My opinion in the book is that artists are always stronger than the pack. Artists, writers, like him, or like me maybe, are always stronger and survive the mob when the mob is against them.
What about the president's words after Toussaint? Did you think those words were at perfect pitch?
I think he had exactly the necessary words at this precise moment of your history. You American people, at a crucial moment, for sure. And I think that Barack Obama found the words calling for union, reconciliation, common values. He refound the words, by the way, of his very beginning at the convention of 2004. And of course, yes, on one side you have some political responsibles who speak about blood libels. And on the other side, you have Barack Obama who speak of civic union. It's exactly the contrary.
There has been too much bad rhetoric on all sides. You know, there's not one place that's owned too much angry rhetoric.
Probably.
And the president's in the middle of all that, but...
Probably. What is sure is that America is a pragmatic country. America is a country where it was preconceived that ideologies do not exist, or that you lived in America in the illusion that you were safe of ideologies. Ideologies was in Europe, and America was country of pragmatism. Today, ideologies are coming in America. This is a new stage in your history. Ideologies are coming, systematic thoughts, doctrinas, and so on. And one has to learn how to deal with that. We know that in Europe since 2 centuries how to deal with ideologies who can kill again. Ideologies are organized speeches which can justify, legitimize the murder. You are making the experience of that in America today.
This book is called Public Enemies, Dueling Writers Take on Each Other in the World.